April of 1977 was supposed to be quiet in Dover, Massachusetts. Dover was the kind of place where nights belonged to crickets, distant dogs, and the slow rustle of wind moving through old New England trees. Nothing dramatic ever happened there. The roads wound through stone walls built centuries ago, and after midnight, the town usually fell into a silence so complete you could hear your own footsteps echo off the pavement. That night, I wasn't supposed to be out. But when you're 17, quiet towns feel like cages after dark. My friend had dropped me off near Farm Street just before midnight, and I decided to walk the rest of the way home. It was a route I had taken hundreds of times before, past old farms, long stretches of forest, and those endless stone walls that ran like ancient borders between properties. The air smelled like damp earth and spring leaves. The sky was clear enough for the moon to light the road in pale silver. For a while, everything felt normal. Then I noticed something strange. Not a sound, not movement, just a shape. At first I thought it was an animal standing on the top of one of those stone walls ahead of me. That wasn't unusual. Raccoons, foxes, sometimes even stray dogs wandered out at night. But as I walked closer, the shape didn't move. And something about the way it was standing didn't look right. The moonlight caught it just enough for me to see its outline. It was small, maybe the size of a thin child. Its body was pale against the dark trees behind it, and it was crouched on top of the stone wall with both hands pressed against the rocks, almost like it was balancing. I slowed down without realizing it. The road was completely empty. No cars, no houses with lights on, just me and that shape on the wall. Then the creature turned its head. The movement was slow and deliberate, like it had been aware of me the entire time. That was when I saw its eyes. They reflected the moonlight with a strange orange glow, bright enough that for a moment I thought they might be shining on their own. The head looked too large for the body. The skin looked smooth, almost hairless, and the fingers gripping the stones were long, unnaturally long, curving over the rocks like thin branches. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. The road was silent, the forest behind the wall was silent, and the thing on the wall was staring directly at me. I remember thinking one simple, stupid thought. That isn't an animal. Then it moved, not away, not toward me. It shifted across the top of the stone wall in a way I still struggle to explain. Not like a human climbing, not like an animal jumping. It almost glided, its long limbs folding and unfolding as it crossed the rocks with eerie precision. And suddenly the quiet road in Dover, Massachusetts didn't feel quiet anymore. It felt watched. Because the creature hadn't run away, it had simply changed position. Still on the wall, still balanced above the ground, still watching me with those same orange eyes. And in that moment, standing alone under the pale April moon, I realized something that made the back of my neck go cold. Whatever that thing was, it hadn't appeared by accident. It had been waiting there for someone to come down that road. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. The creature remained crouched on the old stone wall, its thin arms stretched downward, fingers coiled over the uneven rocks like hooks. In the pale moonlight, the wall itself looked ancient, one of those New England boundaries built long before any of us were born, running through forests and farms across Dover. Normally, I never paid attention to those walls, but now it felt like the only thing separating me from whatever I was looking at. The road between us wasn't wide, maybe 20 feet, close enough that I could see the details of its body clearly now. The skin looked pale gray, almost the color of wet stone. Its head was too large for its narrow shoulders, smooth and rounded like an egg turned sideways, not visible hair. No ears, that I could see, just a small, thin body balanced with unsettling precision on the wall. And those eyes, they weren't glowing like headlights. They reflected the moon in a strange orange shimmer that made them seem alive in a way I couldn't explain. It blinked once. The movement was slow, careful, like it was studying me. I felt my throat tighten as my brain tried to force the image into something normal. Maybe a sick animal, maybe a large owl perched oddly on the wall, maybe a raccoon standing upright, but none of those explanations worked. Animals don't hold eye contact the way this thing did, and animals don't balance on stone walls with their hands spread like that. I took a small step backward. The gravel on the road crunched under my shoe. The sound echoed much louder than it should have in the quiet night. The creature reacted instantly. Its head tilted, not like an animal startled by noise, more like a person reacting to something interesting. Then its body shifted. It leaned forward slightly, the long fingers tightening against the rocks, and suddenly I realized something that made my stomach sink. It wasn't afraid of me, it was curious. The kind of curiosity a scientist might have looking at something unusual, or the way a predator might study something it had never seen before. My heart began to pound harder in my chest. Every instinct told me to leave, but the strange part was, the creature wasn't blocking the road. It wasn't approaching. It wasn't threatening me in any obvious way. It was just watching. The forest behind it stretched dark and deep beyond the wall. Tall trees formed a thick black curtain where the moonlight couldn't reach. And for a brief moment, a disturbing thought crossed my mind. What if that thing had come out of those woods? What if it had been standing on that wall for a long time, waiting for someone to pass? The creature shifted again. This time, its movement was faster. One long arm lifted slightly, its fingers releasing the stones before ripping again farther along the wall. It moved sideways in a smooth, almost fluid motion, not climbing, not jumping, just sliding along the top of the wall like it had done it 1,000 times before, still staring at me, still silent. The distance between us remained the same, but now the creature had changed its angle slightly, positioning itself closer to the trees that ran alongside the road, like it was preparing to disappear back into the forest. But it didn't leave. Instead, it leaned forward again, lowering its strange oversized head slightly, and in the stillness of that empty road outside Dover, I had the unmistakable feeling that whatever I was looking at was trying to decide what I was. The longer I stood there, the more the silence began to feel unnatural, not just quiet, empty, the kind of silence that makes you aware of every small movement your body makes, every breath, every heartbeat, every tiny shift of gravel under your shoes. The creature was still balanced on the stone wall, its thin body perfectly steady despite the uneven rocks beneath it. The longer I looked at it, the more wrong its proportions seemed. The arms were too long, the legs too narrow, and the head, that oversized, smooth head, seemed to tilt just slightly as it watched me, like it was studying the shape of my face. Then something changed. A faint breeze moved through the trees behind it. Branches rustled softly in the darkness, and for the first time since I had noticed the creature, the leaves above the wall began to sway. The movement seemed to trigger something. The creature shifted again, but this time it didn't slide along the wall. It stood up. The motion was slow but incredibly fluid, like joints bending in ways that weren't supposed to. Its thin body straightened until it was standing upright on the stones, balancing with unsettling ease. It wasn't tall, maybe 4 feet at most, but the way it held itself made it seem larger, more aware, more deliberate. For a brief moment, the moonlight caught its face more clearly. I saw the curve of its skull, the deep shadows where a nose should have been, and those same glowing orange eyes staring straight at me. My brain kept trying to force the image into something familiar, but the truth was becoming harder to ignore. Whatever I was looking at wasn't a raccoon, it wasn't a fox, it wasn't any animal I had ever seen in the woods around Dover. And then it did something that made my stomach drop. It stepped off the wall, not like something jumping down, not like a clumsy fall. The creature lowered itself smoothly, one long arm stretching down first, fingers touching the ground before the rest of its body followed. When both of us, its feet touched the dirt beside the road, it crouched low for a moment. The distance between us had suddenly become very real. The stone wall was no longer between us. Now there was nothing separating me from it except open road. I felt my muscles tense instinctively. If it ran toward me, there would be nowhere to go but the forest behind me. The creature didn't run. Instead, it turned its head slightly toward the woods behind it, almost like it was listening to something far away. Then it looked back at me again, and this time, when it moved fast. 1 second it was crouched near the wall. The next second it darted sideways toward the trees with a speed that made my eyes struggle to keep up. Its thin limbs stretched and folded in quick, silent motions as it crossed the short patch of grass beside the road. In less than 2 seconds, it reached the edge of the forest. The shadows swallowed most of its body instantly, but just before it disappeared completely, it stopped, half hidden between the tree trunks, and for one final moment the creature turned its head again. Those same strange orange eyes caught the moonlight one last time as they looked directly at me from the darkness. Then it slipped deeper into the woods. Gone. The road fell silent again, but the quiet didn't feel the same way anymore, because standing there alone under the moon outside Dover, I realized something that made the encounter even stranger. The creature hadn't attacked. It hadn't run. It hadn't run away in fear either. It had simply observed me, almost like our meeting on that empty road had been part of something it didn't fully understand yet. And somehow, I had the uneasy feeling that the story of what I had just seen wasn't going to end with me walking home. For a long moment after the creature vanished into the trees, I didn't move. The forest had swallowed it completely. The branches were still again. The shadows had settled back into their usual shapes. If someone had driven past right then, they would have seen nothing unusual, just a quiet country road running through the dark woods of Dover. But I knew what I had seen, and the more I replayed it in my mind, the more wrong it felt. The way it moved, the way it watched, the way it had stood upright on that wall like it had done it 1,000 times before. I told myself to start walking, slowly at first, then a little faster. The sound of my own steps seemed louder now, echoing down the empty road as I kept glancing back toward the tree line where the creature had disappeared. Nothing followed, nothing moved, but the feeling of being watched stayed with me the entire walk home. By the time I reached my street, the lights for a few houses were visible through the trees, and the familiar shapes of mailboxes and driveways began to calm my nerves. I didn't tell anyone that night. How could I? What was I supposed to say? That I had seen a hairless creature with glowing eyes standing on a stone wall in the middle of the road? Even to me, the story sounded impossible, so I tried to forget it. For most of the next day, I convinced myself it had been some kind of strange animal, maybe sick, maybe injured, maybe something I simply didn't recognize in the dark. But that explanation didn't last long, because the next afternoon, the entire town of Dover started talking about something strange. It began with the rumors spreading through the high school halls. Someone else had seen something the same night, not in the exact same place, but close. The name everyone kept repeating was William Bartlett. Apparently, he had been driving along Farm Street late that same evening with a couple of friends when he spotted something standing on top of a stone wall beside the wall. At first, people thought it was a joke, teenagers making up stories, but the strange part was the details he described: a small figure, hairless skin, long thin arms, a large head, and glowing orange eyes reflecting the light. I remember standing there in the hallway listening to someone repeat the story and feeling the same cold sensation run down my spine that I had felt the night before, because the way he described it was exactly what I had seen, down to the way it balanced on the stones. The room around me buzzed with laughter and disbelief as students argued about whether the story was real. Some people said it was just an escaped monkey. Others said it had to be a prank, but I wasn't laughing, because there was one detail that made the situation even stranger. According to the rumors, William Bartlett had seen the creature only a short time before midnight, on the same road, standing on a stone wall, and the more I thought about it, the more unsettling the realization became. If his sighting had happened first, then the creature I saw later that night hadn't just been wandering randomly through the woods. It had been moving through town, watching the roads, watching the people. And for some reason, on that quiet April night in Dover, more than one person had crossed its path. By the evening after the rumors started spreading, the story had already taken on a life of its own. In a town as small as Dover, strange news traveled fast. By dinner time, parents were talking about it at the kitchen table, students were arguing about it in the school parking lot, and the local police had already heard 3 different versions of the same story. Some people insisted it was a prank, others said it had to be an escaped animal from somewhere outside town, but a few people very quietly said something else. They said the witnesses sounded too serious for it to be a joke. And the strange part was that the sightings didn't stop. The following night, another report came in. This time, the witness was John Baxter. According to what people were saying, he had been walking alone along a quiet road just after midnight, not far from where the first sighting had appeared. The area was dark, surrounded by trees and old farmland, the same kind of lonely stretch that covered most of the roads outside the center of town. At first, he thought someone was standing ahead of him in the darkness, a figure moving near the edge of the woods. Naturally, he assumed it was another person walking home late, so he called out. No answer. The figure kept moving, but the way it moved didn't look right. The body was too small, too thin, and it seemed to move with strange, jerky motions, almost like its limbs were longer than they should be. As John Baxter got closer, the shape turned toward him. For a moment, he thought it might be a child standing in the road, but then the moonlight caught its face. Large head, pale skin, thin arms hanging down almost to its knees, and those same strange glowing eyes. Instead of running away immediately, he did something most people wouldn't have done. He approached it. Later, when people asked him why, he said the creature didn't seem threatening at first. It wasn't attacking. It wasn't chasing him. It was just standing there, watching him. But as he got closer, the details became clearer. The skin looked smooth and almost rubbery. The head seemed oversized with a strange flat face that barely had any visible features. And the fingers were long and thin, stretching downward like pale sticks. Suddenly, the situation didn't feel curious anymore. It felt wrong, very wrong. That was when John Baxter stopped walking, and the creature reacted instantly. It moved with sudden speed, turning sharply and darting toward the trees beside the road, just like the thing I had seen the night before. Silent, fast, disappearing into the forest almost before the brain had time to understand what was happening. But the encounter didn't end there, because as the creature vanished into the trees, John Baxter noticed something that made the story even stranger. The creature hadn't simply run randomly into the woods. It had moved in a straight line toward the deeper forest that stretched far beyond the quiet road surrounding Dover, almost like it knew exactly where it was going. And by the next morning, when the story reached the police station and the local newspapers, people in town had started calling the mysterious figure by a name that would soon become part of local legend. They called it the Dover Demon. By the third day, the entire town of Dover had stopped treating the sightings like a joke. Too many people had heard the same description, too many details matched. And the strangest part was that the witnesses didn't even know each other well, yet they were describing the same thing. The police eventually spoke directly with William Bartlett, the teenager who had seen the creature first. When they asked him to explain what he had seen, he didn't hesitate. He grabbed a piece of paper and began to draw. At first it was just a rough outline, a stone wall, a road, trees behind it. Then he added the shape sitting on the wall. The sketch showed a small body crouched low on the stones, its thin arms wrapped forward for balance. The head was drawn larger than the body should allow, smooth and rounded like a strange helmet. And the eyes, he circled them carefully, large, round, glowing. When the drawing was finished, the room had gone quiet, because it wasn't the kind of thing someone casually invents. The proportions were too strange, too unnatural. The creature in the sketch didn't look like any animal found in the forests around Dover. It looked like something unfamiliar, something that didn't belong there at all. The officers studying the drawing exchanged uneasy looks. Some tried to laugh it off. Others suggested it might be a prank that had gotten out of control. But the problem with that explanation was simple. Another witness had already given the same description. When John Baxter was questioned about his own sighting, he described the creature almost exactly the same way. Small, hairless, long limbs, large head, strange glowing eyes, and neither of the boys had heard the other's full story before giving their statements. That meant something important. Either two teenagers had somehow created identical stories by coincidence, or they had both seen the same creature. But the mystery didn't stop there, because later the same evening, another report came in. This time from a teenage couple driving through the quiet roads on the other side of town. The girl in the passenger seat was named Abby Brabham. According to her, the creature had been standing near a stone wall beside the road when their car headlights passed over it, just for a moment. But that moment was enough. She described the same small body, the same strange head, the same glowing eyes staring back at them from the darkness. By now, the pattern was impossible to ignore. 3 different sightings, 3 different locations, all within a short distance of each other around Dover. And every witness describing the same impossible figure. By the end of that week, the town had started to realize something unsettling. This wasn't just a struggle. This wasn't just a strange animal wandering through the woods. Whatever the witnesses had seen, it had moved through the town itself, quietly, silently, appearing along roads and stone walls before slipping back into the forest again, and no one could explain where it had come from or where it had gone. Stories should have scared me enough to stay at home. Most people in Dover were already doing exactly that. Parents were warning their kids not to wander the roads after dark, and every strange shadow along the tree line suddenly looked suspicious. But the problem was simple. I knew what I had seen, and the more the town talked about the creature now being called the Dover Demon, the more one thought kept returning to my mind. The road where I saw it was still there, the stone wall was still there, and if the creature had been moving through the area the way the witnesses described, then there was a chance it might come back. That idea stayed with me all day. By nightfall, curiosity had grown stronger than fear, so I did something that, looked back now, might have been the worst decision I could have made. I went back. The same road felt completely different after dark. The trees seemed taller, the shadows between them deeper. Every sound kept. Stone wall came into view again. Moonlight stretched across the uneven rocks, turning them pale and cold against the dark forest behind them. For a moment I simply stood there. The place looked exactly the same as it had that night. Same road, same trees, same wall. But the creature wasn't there. At least not at first. I told myself that maybe the town was right. Maybe it had just been a strange animal passing through. Maybe whatever it was had already moved on. But then something caught my attention. A sound, not loud, just a small movement somewhere in the woods behind the wall. The kind of quiet rustling you might hear if something stepped carefully through dry leaves. My body froze. I turned slowly toward the tree line. The forest was thick there, branches overlapping in dark layers that blocked most of the moonlight. For several seconds, nothing moved. Then I saw it, not the creature itself, at least not immediately. What I saw first were the eyes, two faint orange reflections hovering lower in the darkness between the trees. They weren't blinking, they weren't shifting, they were just watching, the exact same way they had watched me before. My stomach tightened, because this time the creature wasn't sitting on the wall. It was already inside the forest, and judging by the distance, it had probably been standing there long before I arrived, waiting. The eyes shifted slightly. The thin shape behind them became clearer as it stepped forward into a patch of pale moonlight. That same strange body appeared between the trees, small, hairless. The oversized head tilting just slightly as it studied me from the shadows. For a moment, neither of us moved. The distance between us felt heavier now, more deliberate, like the creature understood something about the situation that I didn't. Then it did something new. Instead of running like before, the dover demon slowly began walking toward the edge of the woods. The moment it began moving toward the road, every instinct in my body told me to leave, but my feel didn't move. Maybe it was shock, maybe curiosity, or maybe the simple fact that the encounter was unfolding so slowly that my mind hadn't fully caught up with what was happening. The creature stepped carefully between the trees, its thin limbs bending in those same unnatural angles I remembered from the first night. The moonlight filtered through the branches and revealed more of its shape as it came closer to the forest edge. Up close, the proportions looked even stranger. Its body was small and narrow, but the arms seemed longer than they should have been, hanging almost down its knees. The skin reflected the pale light faintly, smooth and hairless like wet stone. And the head looked almost too large for the body supporting it, round, featureless, except for those eyes, two glowing orange circles that never once looked away from me. The creature stopped just inside the tree line, only a few yards from the stone wall. For several seconds it simply stood there, watching, studying. The silence between us felt thick enough to touch. I could hear my own breathing clearly now. Even the distant wind moving through the branches seemed to pause. Then the creature tilted its head again, not like an animal preparing to attack, more like someone examining something unfamiliar. A small step forward brought it closer to the edge of the woods. The movement was slow and deliberate, almost cautious. And that was when I noticed something new. The way it placed its feet. It wasn't walking the way animals usually move. There was a strange balance to its steps, as if it understood the ground beneath it and chose each movement carefully, almost intelligently. The thought made the situation far more unsettling than anything else, because if this thing wasn't acting purely on instinct, then it might have been aware of exactly what it was doing. The creature finally reached the edge of the trees. Only the narrow strip of grass and the stone wall separated it from the open road where I stood. For a moment, it paused again. The moonlight illuminated the upper part of its body now, casting faint shadows across its strange face. I realized something else then. The creature wasn't breathing heavily. It wasn't making any sound at all. No rustling, no growling, nothing. It stood there with an eerie stillness that made it seem almost unreal. Then it did something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It raised one of its long arms slowly, not in a threatening way, just lifting it slightly from its side. The thin fingers extended outward, pale and narrow, as if it were reaching toward the open space between us, toward the road, toward me. For a moment, the distance between us felt impossibly fragile, just a few yards of empty ground separating two completely different worlds. Then the creature's head turned suddenly. The movement was sharp this time, alert, like it had heard something far beyond the road. The arm dropped instantly, and without warning, the figure spun back toward the forest. Its thin body moved with that same sudden speed again, darting between the trees in a blur of pale motion. In seconds, the darkness swallowed it completely. The glowing eyes vanished. The forest returned to silence. But this time, the encounter left me with a new and far more disturbing realization. The creature had not been hiding from me. It had walked toward me, studied me, almost like it had been trying to understand something. And when it finally disappeared again into the woods surrounding Dover, I couldn't shake the uneasy thought that whatever the witnesses had been seeing during those strange nights, the Dover demon might not have been wandering blindly through the town at all. It might have been observing it. After that second encounter, I didn't go looking for the creature again. Curiosity had pushed me far enough. Now something else had taken its place. Unease. The feeling that the situation unfolding in Dover was far stranger than anyone wanted to admit. By the end of that week, the sightings had spread far beyond quiet conversations between teenagers. Teachers were discussing it. Parents were warning their children to stay close to home after dark. Even the local police had begun quietly looking into the reports. Officially, they didn't say much. Small towns have a way of avoiding panic whenever possible, but privately people were asking questions. If 3 different witnesses had seen the same creature, then where had it come from? Some residents believed it had to be an escaped animal. Others said it might be some kind of deformed deer or large bird seen in poor lighting. But none of those explanations matched the details described by the witnesses. Hairless skin, a large rounded head, these thin arms long enough to hang near the knees, and those strange reflective eyes. The more people talked about it, the stranger the story became, because the locations of sightings formed a rough path along the quiet back roads surrounding the town. Farm Street, Springdale Avenue, the wooded areas that connected them, all places surrounded by thick forests that stretched far beyond the borders of Dover. It was almost as if the creature had been moving through a hidden corridor of trees, peering briefly along roads before disappearing back into the woods again. Then something even stronger and stranger happened. The sightings stopped just as suddenly as they had begun. Within a couple of nights, the mysterious figure people had started calling the Dover demon simply vanished. No more glowing eyes along the stone walls. No more strange shapes crossing the road. No more whispers about pale figures moving between the trees. The town slowly returned to normal. Students found new stories to talk about. Adults dismissed the sightings as exaggerations or teenage imagination. And over time, the strange nights of April began to fade into memory. But for those of us who had seen it, the silence that followed wasn't comforting. It was unsettling, because nothing had ever been found. No footprints that proved exactly what it was. No animal matching the description. No explanation that made sense of the identical stories told by witnesses who had no reason to coordinate them. It was as if the creature had simply appeared for a few nights and then vanished back into the wilderness beyond Dover, Massachusetts. And the most unsettling part of all was the question that no one could answer. If the Dover demon had truly been there, then where had it gone? Years have passed since those nights in April of 1977, but the Dover demon has never truly left the town of Dover. Even now, locals share hushed whispers whenever someone mentions Farm Street, Springdale Avenue, or the surrounding woods. Newcomers hear the stories of glowing eyes, small pale bodies, and long, unnaturally thin limbs. Skeptics dismiss them, but anyone who's walked those roads after dark knows there's something in the shadows that cannot be easily explained. Over the decades, the sketches, the newspaper clippings, and the recollections of those first witnesses, William Bartlett, John Baxter, and Abby Brabham, have cemented the Dover demon as a true modern legend. It isn't just a story, it's a lingering presence, a reminder that the forests outside Dover hide things that walk unseen, watching quietly, moving between the shadows, and slipping away before anyone can fully comprehend them. And for those of us who were there, who saw it, even briefly, that presence is unforgettable. Because the Dover demon didn't just cross paths with the town of Dover for a few nights. It left a mark on those who witnessed it, a mark of fear, a mark of avenue, a mark of and a reminder that some legends are real. Even now, when the wind moves through the trees along Farm Street, I can't help but wonder, is it still out there, watching, waiting for the next person to walk its road? And maybe, just maybe, that's the part of the legend that will never die.